visual interest and culture. We're starting to see, primarily because of a lot of grassroots community-based initiatives, Lincoln Boulevard is becoming a bit of a cultural corridor. A lot of the blank featureless facades are being repurposed with some of these murals, creative signage and benches and landscaping. Coming in primarily with a lot of new investment is starting to pop up along Lincoln Boulevard. This is the Legal Grind building at the corner of Ocean Park and Lincoln, and it just had a new Abe Lincoln mural put up. So it's happening, but it's sporadic, and it really lends itself to the city stepping in to help create a coordinated approach.
My name is Evan Meyer. I've been a local resident here now by Main Street, right by Earth Cafe, for about 8 years. About a year and a half ago, I was frustrated with Lincoln. I realized I drive down this place every day, and I wanted to figure out what can be done to enhance this in a legal way, in a clever way, in a way that inspires people, in a way that people get motivated to continue, create a viral effect. And what I noticed was murals are actually that way. They're powerful. Murals are really, really powerful. There's 30,000 cars driving down a day, right? 30,000 eyeballs or cars driving down Lincoln Boulevard every day that actually get to be inspired by something. After we did our first one, started realizing that this is working and people are excited, and the feedback that came was incredible, and donations were coming in, and it was awesome. So we've done dozens now. And just about every one of them, there is a testimonial that has showed an increase in revenue up to 50%. Two of those that have actually mentioned 15% were Metropolitan Cleaners and Novel Cafe. And in fact, Sadha, the new vegan Thai restaurant, has actually moved into the area where they saw a lot of murals because they were seeing that there was something happening here. New businesses have come in. Some other businesses, it was mentioned before, some of the existing groups have actually come in and painted on their own. I know Le Mans and the Santa Monica Motel weren't interested in a mural, but they did actually do some landscaping, and they did repaint, and it looks better. It's inspired other people as well, other communities, the Rockaways in Queens, Williamsburg and Brooklyn, Crenshaw here. We're doing 17 utility boxes sponsored by the city of Silver Lake. And the intention of me being up here is to show you that art has the capacity to inspire and create change cheaply and quickly. It doesn't take a lot. It's really inexpensive, and artists are ready to pour their heart out on these walls. And it doesn't take a lot to inspire community and make things happen. So I would just encourage considering art as the groundwork to make all these changes that are really exciting as well that have been presented here.
We have a question from Commissioner McKinnon.
So, Mr. Meyer, tell us how many murals have been painted, and then how many people have worked on them?
Sure. We've done dozens now. I forget the exact number. I'm going to say between Venice and on Lincoln Boulevard in Venice and Santa Monica, and then elsewhere in Santa Monica, like there's some on Broadway. I'm going to say about 30 total pieces of public or art that's available to the public. There's been, I'm the primary funder of this operation personally. There has been, I want to say, 20 artists. A couple have done more than one. And number of volunteers have been immense, sometimes 4 or 5 per project. People come out. There's actually groups on Facebook that help gather volunteers for this. And so, I don't know, maybe 100 volunteers.
And having been to some of these mural painting exercises and been somewhat involved, I get the feeling people are completely and utterly into it and are quite excited by what is happening, both the painting and the outcome. Is that a fair judgment about it?
That they're excited about the outcome, not the painting, but the outcome.
Well, I'm sure they enjoy
or the painting and the outcome. People are very excited. Most people just want to paint. I've noticed volunteers do like to paint. Everyone wants to see change immediately, which is why murals are awesome. But people do want to take a paintbrush to the wall. No one really wants to get the paint. People do want to actually take the paint, dip it, and do a few strokes for like 20 minutes, and then. But it's great. They love coming out. They love helping out. And then afterwards, I mean, people are just like, wow, I remember what this used to look like. And we've got a bunch of before or after shots I didn't bring here tonight, but I figured a lot of you have seen a lot of the before and after driving down Lincoln.
I have a question. Can you tell us a little bit more about the population that you're drawing from for the artists? Are you drawing from local organizations? How are you going about?
I see. Okay. Facebook has been really crucial, leveraging social networking and Instagram to actually encourage artists to get involved. We have artists from really high-end artists who have contributed their time to even work with children on some murals, and all the way to local artists who are normally painting in their basement and want to be painting outside. There have been a variety of organizations that we have worked with from the artist capacity. I can't think of like a specific artist organization, but Spark we've worked with in some capacity. I know some of our team members have teamed up with them. The Boys and Girls Club has a great art, in Venice has a great art organization that we've worked with before.
Commissioner Kennedy, you have a question?
Well, I just wanted to make a quick comment. First, thanks so much for all of your work helping to beautify all of these areas, and also just wanted to say thanks so much for your continued community involvement. I remember about 4 years ago you came to a Planning Commission meeting at the Ken Edwards Center, and we were talking about buses and the expo at the time.
Wow,
and
yeah.
so I just wanted to say thanks for continuing to stay involved.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Peter, there seems to me two phases to this, and that is that there is a demand from the community right now for something to begin to happen. In your report, you said on the second page in the paragraph that interest in reimagining Lincoln Boulevard began or was stimulated after the relinquishment of the boulevard. That's not the case. There's been, for a long period, people who want to reimagine this boulevard, and there's an overwhelming demand for it to happen now in some form. So what's your thinking in terms of how we manage that demand for something to happen immediately, as opposed to pretty typically the way it operates, 18 months of discussion with 4 sets of consultants and then a sort of 5-year implementation plan?
Yes, I don't think that's going to happen with this project.
What makes you think that?
Well, because from the very beginning we've set off to have a goal to make very immediate change. And that may not be changed to the roadway, which does take a lot of sort of rigorous analytical work and traffic modeling and back and forth. But what we think we can create immediate change around is the condition of the public realm, the building facades, the paint. I mean, it could just be as simple as a coat of paint to begin with, a couple planters in the front.
So is that something that you would write a schematic plan for, or just go out and do?
I think this is something that we would try to go out and do. We don't need to wait for the schematic plan. The schematic plan will mostly deal with the right-of-way.
So
and
would
the
that be
landscaping.
you that does that? I mean, there are 5 government or 5 departments here that you've identified that have got a finger in this pie. So is it planning that will lead that, or public works, or?
It's likely planning that will lead that. We'll be coordinating with the Lincoln Boulevard Task Force, Beautify Earth. You heard from both of them tonight. We've also been in contact with the UCLA Planning Department, who have expressed interest in volunteering for certain aspects of this project. So, for example, we hope that they can deliver us a core of volunteers to do some of our additional parking studies. So we're trying to be creative about putting money and volunteer labor and donated things together.
And so do you have a short-term goal that you can share with us?
I do not have a date in mind, but it's...
So what would be the outcome of this short-term thing you're talking about?
Well, we have one item of interest in this line of questioning that might be of interest to you. We do have a plan to create a demonstration project on a facade, on a private facade. So that would be after we have developed some sense of need and have targeted a location where a change on that building facade might have ripple effects down the rest of the boulevard. And we've written very clearly into our scope that we want to do an effort there to showcase some of the ideas that are coming out of the planning effort. And this is something that is not going to happen 18 months out, but maybe 6 or 7 months out from now. after we've had the time to do the work to figure out what's the right approach, the identity, that Commissioner Kennedy noted, what is something that we can replicate again and again and again, that is at low cost, easy to do.
So this is a slightly different concept than you normally have. It's a rolling program that starts now. Is
That's
that the
right.
way we're looking at
We're
it?
doing this one a little differently.
And then in 18 months, if we've been rolling along, what will be the outcome of the totality then? Perhaps you've rolled along to a point we don't need that.
Well, certainly that may be true for some of the facade stuff, but I still think that there's things we can do on the sidewalk, the street, the trees, the landscaping, some physical modifications to the roadway in terms of possibly mediums, pedestrian refuges. We'll be coordinating with the Santa Monica High Safe Routes to School project with what happened at Ocean Park. So we want to tie into those key areas as well with additional enhancements. Mango, I mean, it's all in the mix.
It's a beautiful thing. And as they repopulate, they attract new sorts of business and new ways of doing things along there. And I think that what Evan Meyer has proved is that even some paint on buildings, whether it's 1 mural or 22 murals, can make that a more attractive place for people to go as it is right now. And we see that vegan Thai places come back, and a couple of other neighbourhood serving, but in fact, consumer serving places are in place, and there is slightly more foot traffic and certainly more bikes and more activity and more interest. And that, for me, is the direction that I think will pay the most dividends and retain the most interest, because we don't want that to look like every other boulevard in the Los Angeles area. We have an opportunity to do something that's really distinct and unique and powerful, and the value of that is to use some of those buildings that are down there. And when you question why would people move on, because there's a higher use than just serving cars, that there's more people down there, and a coffee shop sees the value of putting a coffee shop in that will serve that. So I hope you bear that in mind, that this is something that the residents don't want to see large buildings down there. They want those buildings reimagined and repurposed. And a business investment district would be a very useful step. And I also think that how we zone the whole of Lincoln's a really important step to protect and certainly allow some new investment, but to give us a footing going forward.
All right. I only have a couple questions. First of all, I appreciate Commissioner Newbold's comments about not wanting to overmanage it. And, obviously in this situation where we've got engaged citizens and business owners seeking to make a change, it seems like the cheapest and perhaps most effective steps may be to make sure that we, the city, aren't getting in the way. And along those lines, I'm curious, how does the city view murals? How is that regulated as architectural review?
The murals that are on Lincoln Boulevard are on private property, so they're not subject to architectural review or to our, I think they are subject to our sign code, but Evan, is he still here? Yeah, he's still here. I think Evan's been pretty careful about steering away.
I recommended he didn't ask, but just go ahead and do them.
Yeah, I could clarify that a little bit too. So,
Really? You said that out loud?
so yeah, as long as a mural doesn't contain any commercial advertising, it doesn't have anything to do with the business that's occurring on site, it's not considered signage. There are cases where it might be subject to ARB review if the ARB in their initial review approved building colors, for example, and if those are being changed by the installation of a mural, then that would have to go back. I don't think that's been the case on any of the ones that were done on Lincoln. But again, generally, as long as there's no commercial content, it's not considered signage and it's allowed.
Yeah, that's good to know, because I was looking at our design regulations thinking that there was a constraint on adding murals, that an applicant would need to come back to ARB to get modifications, and making sure when we're moving forward, not just on Lincoln, but perhaps elsewhere, that perhaps there's a way to carve out places where it's encouraged, in fact. And it sounds like that's not needed, but certainly as you're moving forward through the process, if we do see ways that our regulations could be modified to, not just not be in the way, but to encourage it, then that's certainly something that should be pursued.
Okay.